Restoration Shamans use the power of water, the elements, and of course a large array of different totems to heal their allies. We're going to learn today in a beginner-friendly and digestible format how to play them in both Mythic Plus and Raiding for Season 4 of Dragonflight. Starting off with the stat priority, I first want to say that you should always go for eye level and therefore intellect above your secondary stats. Meaning if you do get a new piece of gear and it's a higher eye level, this is very, very often, pretty much 99% of the time, going to be a better upgrade than looking at the secondary stats you are gaining. However, if we do want to look at the overall general idea, this is going to be the priority you will want to take here. But it's not one size fits all, and you should always simulate your character if you know how, if you are not sure. Join our Discord if you're not sure on how to do that, and I or someone else will help you. For the talent trees, this on the left is for raiding. On the right hand side, we have the Mythic Plus build. I've put both import strings in the description for you, and don't worry, we're going to be going through these in a bit more depth shortly in this video. However, before we get on to that, we have a plethora of cooldowns and utility spells that are really, really useful for Restoration Shamans, and I want to talk through some of the really important and exciting ones. Astral Shift then is a personal defensive, reducing your damage taken by 40% for 12 seconds. Really straightforward, does what it says on a tin with that one. Then we've got Ascendance. You're going to transform into an elemental ascendant, doing more healing split across your entire party, to put it simply. More on that later. Nature's Swiftness, if you're familiar with druids, you'll know they also have this exact same spell, means that your next nature and healing spell is going to be instant. Therefore, in times of great need, needing to top up an ally really quickly, this can come in really handy. And on the bottom, we have Bloodlust if you're Horde, or Heroism if you are Alliance. This is going to increase your party's haste by 30% for 40 seconds and is generally considered the biggest and most important cooldown in the entire game. This alone will help get you into groups. You may want to discuss with your raid or party leader when is appropriate to use this, considering how much of a benefit this one is. And lastly, Spirit Link Totem, one of our many totems we have at our disposal. This is going to be a raid-wide damage reduction and health redistribution totem, evening out the healing and health of your party or raid. We've also got another free here, Healing Tide Totem. Simply, it's a big old juicy heal for the raid. Ancestral Guidance, where 25% of your healing and damage is also going to heal nearby allies for 10 seconds. And lastly, an Earth Elemental you can summon. Summoning an Earth Elemental to protect you and your allies for a minute, but you're also, and the main benefit of this, going to gain 15% on top of your max health. I know it's a lot. Don't worry, we're going to go through all of the abilities shortly. Looking at just a few of the utilities, trying not to overwhelm you with spells in this video, we have Ghost Wolf, I think it's my favourite movement speed ability for all classes. Every single class has one or two movement abilities, and this one is, in my opinion, the best. We can shapeshift into a ghost, wolf, and we get 40% movement speed. We can use this indoors and outdoors, in combat and out of combat, and it's toggleable, meaning it doesn't ever end, and therefore is one of the best. We have Hex, where we can incapacitate our enemy for a minute, turn him into some sort of bug or nasty frog. Wind Shear is our kick or interrupt. If you hear people saying the word kick and you're like, what's that? It's simply another name for interrupt, interrupting your enemy's spellcasting. And Water Walking is another favourite of mine, where you can put this on you and your allies so you can walk on water. And this actually comes in handy more than you may think in certain dungeons and raid scenarios. Let's have a look now how we're going to put it all together, starting off with the raid build. You may notice here that my UI is considerably different to yours. That is because I have actually custom made this using mainly Elf UI and a few other add-ons to make it exactly how I look. I'm very minimalist. If you'd like to get this yourself, you can by joining my Patreon, link down below in the description for that. What else you will get on my Patreon is a VIP channel in the Discord where you can ask me any questions. And I always prioritize Patreons, of course, as a token of my thanks and to support you guys in return to supporting me. You get, of course, my UI that you can import. And you also get a lot of written guides on my Patreon that I'm adding to all the time. Written guides and other videos that I'm making specifically just for Patreons and also specifically focused at beginners. as well as some keybind spreadsheets and things like that. One other thing that you may notice on the UI is this weak aura in the center here. This is by Luxfos, and what this is aiming to do is putting all of your resources like your mana, your totem cooldowns, and your buffs all in one central place so that you can see it in your eye line. And I think it's really, really useful for a beginner. Again, if you need help installing that or you don't really know what that is, come over and join the Discord. We've got a really helpful, friendly community who are always there when you need us. So what spells are we going to be using, and what kind of priority are we going to be using them in? Well, we've got our main spells here that we're going to be using that make up the core foundation of Restoration Shaman. We've got some useful totems over here. We've got some utilities down here, and then we've got Ascendants, which I'll talk about in a minute. Starting off then, we have Chain Heal, and the build I'm showing you is focusing around Chain Heal. Heals the friendly target for X amount, and then jumps up to 30 yards away to heal the 4 most injured nearby allies. Healing is reduced by 30% with each jump. And we want to use this specifically when we have a certain buff called High Tide. Every 100,000 mana you spend brings a High Tide, making your next 2 chain heals heal for an additional 10% and not reduce the healing with each jump they do. When you have a High Tide, which you can see on my weak aura right here, it's a buff, as you can see, for the next 20 seconds, and it does look like the High Tide, and you also know it's actually activated because you'll get this proc effect around your chain heal. So it's always your top priority that when you do get your High Tide, that you use those to enhanced chain heals. After that, we're going to use Riptide on cooldown. You can see here we have 2 charges of this. Restorative waters wash over the friendly target, healing them for X amount instantly and an additional amount over 21 seconds. And that, as you can see, is on quite a quick recharge. It's only on a 6-second recharge here. One thing to note is the talent Deluge here. Healing Wave, Healing Surge and Chain Heal heal for an additional 20% on targets that are affected by your Healing Rain or Riptide. So basically our other heals are going to do more healing if the target has a Riptide on them or they're standing in our Healing Rain. Healing Rain is this spell here. Blanket the target area in Healing Rains, restoring health to nearby allies. And we're going to put this where allies are generally clumped up, usually the melee, and we can reuse this on a 10-second cooldown as needed. We've then got our Primordial Wave here. Blast your target with a Primordial Wave on a 45-second cooldown, healing them and applying Riptide to them. Again, that's that spell here. That, of course, doesn't take up the 2 charges. It's separate. Your next Healing Wave is also going to hit all targets affected by your Riptide for 40% of normal healing. So whenever we use a Primordial Wave, again, remember, it's going to apply Riptide to them, and then our next Healing Wave after using Primordial Wave is going to hit all of your targets that have Riptide. So when we use our Primordial Wave, you immediately want to follow it up with a Healing Wave. Healing Wave is just an efficient single target heal. So basically what we're going to do so far is then get your Riptides on as many people as possible, using it on cooldown, using Primordial Wave, of course, on somebody that doesn't have a Riptide, because that will also put Riptide on them. When you then use your Primordial Wave, your next Healing Wave will actually heal everyone that has Riptide on them. Then we've got our Healing Rain, which I've already mentioned. We want to use that pretty much on cooldown. And then we have Unleash Life, and this does a few different things depending on how we use it. It's on a 15-second cooldown. Riptide, Healing Wave, or Healing Surge. This is Healing Surge. To quickly go over that, imagine Healing Wave is the efficient single target heal. Healing Wave is the quick, non-efficient one. You can see it's 11,000 mana, whereas Healing Wave is 7,500. This heals 37,000. This heals 37,000. So basically, this one's a 1.3 second cast. That's 2.2. Does the same amount of healing. Healing Surge is quick. Healing Wave is slow and efficient in mana. So Unleash Life. Unleash your elemental forces of life, healing a friendly target for X amount and increasing the effect of your next healing spell. Riptide. This one, remember, that we're using on cooldown. Healing Wave. This one here, our efficient one. Or Healing Surge. 35% increased healing. If you use it on your Chain Heal, remember our Chain Heal here, then we're going to get 15% increased healing, and it's going to bounce an additional target. If you've got High Tide active, which is, remember, after you've spent 100,000 mana, as you can see here, it's just buffed. My bar's in the way a little bit, but you can see the buff there. Remember, it's buffing your Chain Heal, meaning that it's not going to reduce the healing with each jump, and it's actually going to heal an additional 10%. When High Tide is active, what you want to do is use your Unleash Life to heal someone. And remember, when you use it, you're going to get a 15% increased healing, and your chain heal is going to bounce to an additional target. So remember that when we're getting our High Tide, it's not going to lose healing with bounces, and it's going to do more healing. So whenever you can, use your Unleash Life, and if you've got High Tide on your chain heal, then use your chain heal so that your chain heal is bouncing and doing additional healing. So we can synergize that Unleash Life with our chain heal. Otherwise, if you don't have High Tide buff and your chain heal isn't proccing, then we would use our Unleash Life on our Healing Rain. You can see here on Healing Rain or Downpour, it will affect an additional 2 targets. And that is generally how we're going to use Unleash Life to buff our healing spells. And lastly, if we've got loads of mana, we can use our Healing Surge for quick and efficient or inefficient heals, and Healing Wave as our kind of filler spell when we don't need as urgent heals. Then we're going to look at our totems. But first, I just want to recap on what we're doing here. So number 1 priority, using Chain Heal when we've got our High Tide active, as you can see here. Remember, that's every 100,000 mana spent. Whenever we do have a High Tide, use your Unleash Life and then use that to empower your next High Tide Chain Heal. Use Riptide on cooldown, buffing your allies with it, and using Primordial Wave on somebody else without Riptide, spreading more Riptides. Use your Healing Wave after you use your Primordial Wave, because that Healing Wave is actually going to heal everyone with Riptide as well. Use your Healing Rain on cooldown, and we've just spoken about Unleash Life and how to use that. Now going on to the totems then. We've got our Spirit Link totem, which you can place. Ta-da! Summons a totem at the target location for 6 seconds, reducing damage taken by all party and raid members within 11 yards by 10%. So again, if big damage is incoming, you can put that Spirit Link totem up and anyone inside is going to take less damage. Immediately in every 1 second, the health of all effective players is redistributed evenly. Because, you know, someone might have amazing gear, and someone might have really bad gear in your raid, and someone might be losing health in an AoE effect really quickly, whereas someone else isn't, and it helps redistribute that health among the raid, keeping everyone alive. Another 2.9 minute cooldown one is Healing Tide Totem. Summons a totem at your feet for 10 seconds, which pulses, healing all party or raid members within 46 yards for X amount. And this is basically a big super duper healing totem. We then have the Mana Tide Totem, again on a long cooldown, summoning a totem at your feet for 8 seconds, granting 80% increased mana regen to allies within 23 yards. That is actually going to help you, again, with mana regen. And lastly, we have the Cloud Burst Totem. And you actually want to use this quite a lot. You can see here that you can cancel the effect when it comes up, and you've got 2 charges of it. So it's on a 39-second recharge, and when you put it up, it is going to be for 18 seconds, meaning we can get quite a high uptime on this. Summons a totem at your feet for 18 seconds that collects power from all of your healing. When the totem expires or dies, the stored healing is released, healing all injured allies within 46 yards for 24% of the healing done while it was active, divided evenly among targets. Casting the spell a second time recalls the totem and releases the healing. So if you want to release the healing earlier, you can then just press it again to recall the totem and do that. When we have Cloud Burst Totem up, our set bonus this season is going to mean that our heals are doing extra crit damage, crit healing, not damage. And that is basically what the set bonus this season is doing. It's just massively increasing our crit. And you want to pretty much not cap on Cloudburst Totem and be free to use it really as much as you want, in my opinion. You don't have to save both charges. Don't let it cap out at 2 charges because it's kind of a waste. But don't also feel like you have to save 1 charge if you don't want to. And that is how we're going to be using our main totems. Then we've just got some utility spells I want to talk through. Purify Spirit, removing all magic effects from a friendly target. Nature Swiftness, your next healing or damaging spell is instant and costs no mana. So I can use Nature Swiftness and then do like an instant chain heal. Of course, if you've got High Tide and stuff, that could be really awesome for that, to get out a big load of healing. We then have Windrush Totem. It's a 1.9 minute cooldown, summons a totem, as you can see here, and basically anyone that passes through it has much improved movement speed. As you can see, I suddenly walk a lot faster when I'm going through that. And again, here you can see I'm walking slowly and I'm going faster. And you can see it does actually linger for a few seconds after you come out of it. Lastly, we've got the Water Shield and the Earth Shield. Water Shield is for you, Earth Shield is for the tank. Basically, Water Shield, you're surrounded by globules of water, granting mana per 5 seconds. When a melee attack hits you, the caster regains some of their mana. You can only have The Shaman can have up to 2 elemental shields on them at active at one time. The second one that you're going to have is going to be your, if I can find it, is going to be your lightning shield. So you can have both of them up. Lightning shield is just going to affect melee attackers, so have it on you if you want. You're rarely going to get melee attacked, to be honest, as a healer, so it doesn't really matter, especially as a beginner. But it is important you have your water shield up. Earth Shield protects the target with an earthen shield, increasing your healing on them by 20% and healing them for X amount when they take damage. Generally, I put it on the tank. You can put it on someone that's taking a lot of damage. It's up to you, but like I said, for a beginner, basics, just put it on the tank. The heal can only occur once every few seconds, maximum 9 charges. Earth Shield can only be placed on the Shaman and one other target at a time. So you can have this up on yourself and the tank, or you can have the lightning one on. It's up to you. Earth Shield can only be placed on the Shaman. So I've just said that. The Shaman can have up to 2 elemental shields again active on them. So it's up to you. If you are going to get melee hit, have the lightning shield if you are. Otherwise, you can have the Earth Shield on there. Again, increasing your healing on yourself. It really does depend on the fight. So we've been through the main part of how to heal as a Shaman. We've been through the cooldown totems and some of the other totems and utilities you've got. There's also Ascendants. There's a lot of spells you can use as a Shaman. Transforms into a Water Ascendant, duplicating all healing you deal at 80% effectiveness for 15 seconds and immediately healing for X amount. Ascendant healing is distributed evenly among allies. Use this on cooldown when you need to do a huge amount of healing. Again, it's on a 3-minute cooldown. Apart from that, there is some other stuff, but again, I don't want to overwhelm you as a beginner. There's a lot of other spells in here that are utility spells. We've spoken about Ancestral Guidance earlier, etc. I think the only one really that you should need to know about as a beginner is probably going to be Totemic Recall. Resets the cooldown of your most recently used totem, but only if it's one that has a shorter cooldown than 3 minutes. You can see here, all of mine have 2.9 minute cooldowns, so you could use your Mana Tide totem and then use Totemic Recall, resetting the cooldown of it if it has a base cooldown shorter than 3 minutes, and that is on a 2-minute cooldown. And that is it really for single target. If you want to look at the Mythic Plus build, then if we go over into the build, you can see a few slight changes are being made, but not really many. The main one here, you're getting Stormkeeper, charging yourself with lightning, causing your next 2 lightning bolts or chain lightning to cast more damage. That's more for when you're doing damage in Mythic Plus. Targets you heal with Healing Wave, Healing Surge, Chain Heal or Riptide, gain 10% increased health for 10 seconds, which is useful. And then Primordial Wave increases the healing done by next healing wave by 25%. If that sounds like, hang on, I thought it already did that, let's just reread it to be clear on what's happening here. Your next healing wave will also hit all targets affected by your Riptide for 40%. So yes, your next healing wave is doing a massive amount of extra additional healing, but not like the actual healing wave heal itself. It's so badly worded, but hopefully that makes sense. Whereas with this one, it actually will increase the main heal of the healing wave. And then we have the continuous waves, which reduces the cooldown of Primordial Wave for 15 seconds. And then we get Thunderstorm on 25-second cooldown, calling down a bolt of lightning, dealing damage to all nearby enemies, reducing their movement speed and knocking them upward, which is really good on Trash, etc. in Mythic Plus. The actual rotation and the heals we're using it set themselves really aren't changing whatsoever. It's going to stay exactly the same as I have explained. Hopefully, guys, that was really helpful for you. Again, I just want to reiterate, if you want to join the Discord, without sounding like I'm shilling it here, shilling myself, we honestly do a really there for beginners with a really friendly community, helping out each other, etc. And on the Patreon, again, if you do want to get my UI, you can. And I always prioritize, Patreon supporters in the VIP Discord channel with any questions they have about literally anything. As, of course, I don't have time, to do it for absolutely everyone. So that's my way of trying to help as much as I can. And I do have a lot of extra resources in there. And it does also support the channel. If you are looking for other Shaman or other specialization guides, then do click this playlist here. It's got every single specialization guide for season 4 of Dragonflight. And I've actually just started doing PvP guides for Dragonflight for beginners, and I have dungeon guides as well. So I really appreciate all your support, guys. There's more and more coming with every patch that comes out for you all.